Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Executive Insights by Mediacorp. So this is our third session in the Executive Insights series, and today's focus is on turning consumer behavior into business success. My name is Parminder Singh. I'm the Chief Commercial and Digital Officer at Mediacorp. And joining me today are two industry stalwarts, Ranga Somanathan, the CEO of Omnicom Media Group for Singapore and Malaysia, and Jacqui Group CEO for Havas, Singapore. The hashtag for today's session is MPL Executive Insight. So if you feel like tweeting, posting, putting anything interesting that you see in the session on social media, please do use this hashtag. We'll also use the hashtag to track the conversations after the session. So if you want to have a conversation post the session, please do use the hashtag. Now, besides the three of us, you might inadvertently hear another voice in today's session. That's totally unintentional. That will be my pet, Waffles. Next, please. These are the challenges and joys of working from home. So please I apologize in case you hear him occasionally in the session today. So we at Mediacorp take consumer behavior very seriously, and everything at Mediacorp starts with consumer behavior. Next slide, please. Whether we create our content, whether we create content strategies for advertisers or audiences, it all starts with consumer behaviors and insights. In fact, we take it so seriously that we have a separate division called Consumer Insights and Analytics. Now, your organization may or may not have a separate function, a separate division for consumer insights, but the point remains that consumer insights and understanding consumer behavior is really important for any business, no matter which industry you're in, no matter whether you're B2B or B2C. In fact, there was a study recently done by Salesforce on understanding consumer behavior, which shows that 76% of consumers expect companies to understand their needs and expectations. So not only is it incumbent on companies to understand their needs and expectations, but also to let the customers know that they communicate that they're trying to understand their needs and expectations. And not surprisingly, companies that do this are the ones that are successful. As you'll see in the next slide, in the same study, organizations that lead in customer experience based on consumer behavior outperform the laggards on the S&P 500 index by nearly 80%. And that's a very significant percentage. Now, we all intuitively know that we need to understand customer behavior, but there are challenges. And there are three challenges to actually making this into reality. Number one is access. How do we access meaningful customer insights? Number two is turning the customer insights or customer behavior into practical marketing or business actions. And number three is our customers keep changing. Now imagine if you had customer behavior from 6 months back and you were planning to launch a product based on that. Given what's happened in the last 4 months, those behavioral insights would probably not be relevant anymore. So how do you make sure that you're on top of the customer behavior trends at any given point of time? So that will be the crux of the session today. How do we make sure that we are on top of the customer behavior trends? And then how do we translate this into business success by taking practical marketing or product action? And also we'll go a little deeper into an omni-channel retail experience based on customer behavior. Now at this minute, let's do a check on the audience over here. We have about 400 of you already logged in. We'd like you to tell us how important is consumer insights to formulate your marketing and business strategy. Firstly, do you have access to consumer and business strategy, to the insights? And do you use it to formulate your strategy? So it's a very simple poll. You can choose any of the 5 options. The options are all the time, most of the time, 50% of the time, some of the time, and not at all, not sure how to go about doing it. And this is a live poll. We'll show you the results right now. Okay, can we have the results, please? So, okay, so it's a divided house. 21% say they use it all the time. 34% say most of the time. 18% say half the time, 50%, and then 21% of you say some of the time, and 6% say not at all, not sure how to go about doing it. So I think this shows that we are on a wide, the spectrum is very wide. And I hope that the rest of the session will provide meaningful insights to you on customer behavior, no matter which side of the spectrum you're in. So with this, I'll hand over to Ranga to go a little deeper into customer behavior and how do you turn that into meaningful, practical marketing and product action. Ranga, over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Harry, Jacqui. It's been great actually working with you guys to come up to this webinar today, and I hope everyone finds it meaningful. Being forged in crisis, Churchill had this to say about crisis. What did he say? He said, don't waste a good one, right? As much as it comes with hardships, a crisis also affords the brands the opportunity to hit refresh and prepare for the new realities. Luckily, going to the next slide, we have many crises to learn from. Globally, regionally, or even within Singapore, whether it is SARS, whether it is H1N1, or the great financial crisis, and now the COVID crisis, right? And to recover from these crises, we can learn a couple of lessons from the past. Before we talk about these recovery strategies and what would it look like, let's look at how the world sees the recovery cycles. Go to the next slide. Harvard actually is forecasting a V-shaped recovery. However, a recent study in April by Kantar in our region actually shows a more nuanced view with countries expecting to recover in a V-shape, U-shape, or L-shape. At this point in time, I would like to take a pause to get your views on how our recovery will look like. Let's do a quick poll to gauge our sentiment. What do you think is the shape of our economic recovery? Give it another few seconds. %73% of us actually feel that it's going to be a U-shaped recovery, with about 10% feeling it will be a V, and about 18% feeling it's going to be a longer down process. As much as we are defined by our environment, one key element of the recovery is the velocity with which we respond. I believe, regardless of whether it is a V-shaped economic recovery, U-shaped economic recovery, or L-shaped recovery, the key ingredient of how each of our individual companies, individual business recovery is dictated by is with the speed of response. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Here is an example from the US where brands have responded with speed and gained market share at the cost of those who took a wait and watch approach. In this case, contrary to popular belief, it's the small brands that grew at the cost of the established brands. Two key discriminators were the brands which succeeded, especially the small brands and the private label brands, continued with their availability of products in store. So they had their pipeline sorted and they were present in store all the time, and continued marketing support for the brand through the downturn. A crisis, as much as it brings hardships, also creates a level playing field for brands. Typically, to gain market share in a highly competitor cookie category will be very difficult for a private label brand or a small brand. A reset like this allows for the mid to long tail brands to actually make a strong impact and gain market share. Of course, if you're a big brand and you're having a continued presence, both in terms of distribution as well as marketing, you're able to ride the wave better than the others, right? One of the key advantages of a crisis like this, if we are ready for it and we respond with velocity and speed, is we will win asymmetrically to the effort we put in and the results we get. Let's have a look at the media consumption habits that have actually evolved over the few months that we've seen. Having seen how the crisis is followed by a recovery and the shape of such recovery is a function of our speed of response, let's look at how we are looking at some temporary behavior changes and long-lasting behavior changes in our customers. Here's the viewership across Mediacorp, where a key opportunity is presenting itself to marketers with significant growth in viewership across all video formats, across video platforms of Mediacorp, right? Across their ecosystem, we have a spike in audiences. This is coupled with suppressed demand and COVID response packages, and this presents itself a very meaningful platform for brands to leverage. High audiences, better cost of entry, getting us attention. When there's in the last 20 years, every conference and a seminar you would go, we would talk about how attention deficit this economy has become. And then with the COVID situation, it has got flipped and we have got abundance of attention. And that's a great opportunity for brand marketers who are ready to engage with customers to actually win asymmetrically. We can get the next slide. Consumers are also embracing new behaviors that are going to here to stay. These are going to be the new normals, right? Whether they are seeking mindfulness, looking for home solutions, and home workout solution. And Jacqui will share an example how one of the Singapore brands is leveraging this particular trend. Looking for study groups. One of the biggest things that I have a heart for is all the moms who have young kids at home. Not only has work invaded home without invitation, but schools have included into our homes as well. And even as a lot of us are balancing our work demands, especially with the parents who have young kids who are not independent to get onto their Zoom calls to school, I can actually see my colleagues straddling this study from home trend massively. And this is another thing that is here to stay. And one of the recent pieces in the New York Times talks about how the entire education industry is going to flip on the back of how study from home is going to be a big deal. One of the recent acquisitions that we saw from Disney was tuition portal called Byju's, which is a huge acquisition, $4 billion they paid to actually acquire tuition portal. Knowing fully well, digital learning, online learning is going to be a big trend, and that's going to be here to stay, right? And of course, cooking solutions. I have one of my friends had posted on Facebook the other day that our moms and grandparents cooked without necessarily having to declare to the world what they had cooked. But the amount of cooking that we're doing now and rediscovering that habit and hobby is actually letting consumers seek out for cooking solutions. And that's a trend that I believe is here to stay. And the other area of accelerated growth that presents itself to brands is online gaming. And you can see how across-board gaming solutions, whether it is desktop gaming, console gaming, or even mobile gaming, has actually accelerated over the last few months. And that's, again, something has breached certain demographics. While it was a younger age group that used to be massively into gaming, has actually expanded the demographic range. And taking note of these shifting priorities, looking at the next slide, right? Consumers are also looking at shifting their own consumption priorities. Some categories are gaining or holding value in consumer mind, while luxury and leisure are declining in immediate value. And that's something that consumers are not craving for now or immediate future, probably deferring it for a later stage. And having looked at these behavior shifts and category priorities, then I would like to take a quick look at what some of the brands have done during these four crises. Let's have a look at the next slide. I've broadly classified this crisis into 4 stages: the initial outbreak phase, the peak phase, recovery, and what the future is, right? We can see that, and we all can have personal validation as well, is that when the crisis started, we all were shocked and didn't want to believe that it is hitting us. As it peaked, we were beginning to see things are different. we're still angry, and getting sad and depressed, and then there's an emotional flux going on. And into the recovery phase, that we are into right now, we begin to engage back with life, learn to work in the situation, and there is some positivity and hope that creeps into our psyche. And as we embrace this new norm, we're getting ready for the future, especially with 3 or 4 cycles of the purchase behavior changing, the shifting environment, that we have actually formed new habits, we have embraced new changes. And with this sudden pause in activity, right, we have also had time to reflect and renew our understanding of our own purpose. And a vast majority of mid to higher income demographies have actually nudged into thinking into a higher order state, higher order state of needs, hierarchy of needs, right? And how did brands respond, right? While in the solution focused and when in the initial outbreak, brands were solution focused, and at the peak stage, we were trying to elevate the brand purpose. It was in Singapore clearly seen in terms of how AIA responded with extending its cover not only towards employees and customers, but also extended to all the people who had linked to their representatives as well. So this is a classic case of how a brand responded in Singapore when the COVID crisis was at its peak. Going into the recovery and future state which we are in, and therefore focus more on, is how do we move as brands into a soft self pace and with a lot of empathy and engage the audience to serve their higher order need, right? I'm going to give you a few examples over the next few slides. Can you go to the next slide, please? Here we actually see how Mercedes-AMG collaborated with the college in London and their F1 competitors who otherwise they're fiercely competing with, like Red Bull and McLaren, to manufacture a breathing aid, which was eventually supplied to hospitals in UK, Italy, and China, right? The very interesting thing about this, in less than 100 hours from concept to manufacturing and putting it out there, the teams following a rapid prototyping protocol came together, used their Formula One technology on pumping air into the engines to get that acceleration. They've used the same technology to actually come up with a product which is now distributed across these markets to help severe patients who have breathing difficulty because of the coronavirus situation, right? This is a very meaningful example by which brands stop doing what their fundamental purpose is and start supporting and doing things to solve a community problem. Let's roll the video, please. This is a classic example of when, how brands have repurposed themselves. And this is not just limited to Mercedes. We have seen LVMH and other brands who actually repurposed their manufacturing facility to start supporting the community. And that was at that phase, and that phase is gone. And then we are now looking at this phase where talking about recovery mode, a category that was most affected by lockdown and social distancing was the travel category. And let's see how one of the brands actually embraced engaging with consumers in this place. Let's see the video.
What are you dreaming of?
I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming of regal palaces and fairy tale castles. I'm dreaming of culture and the arts, of theatres and museums, ballet and opera. I'm dreaming of buildings and monuments steeped in history. I'm dreaming of time-honored traditions and customs. I'm dreaming of making new friends and seeing new places. What are you dreaming of?
Auf Wiedersehen. We can't wait to see you again and to turn your dreams into reality. Destination Germany. Discover Germany from home.
Home campaign is such a powerful one. It allows Germany to have 100% SOV when all other tourism boards have gone silent. Even though, I did my first family holiday to Germany last year, it kind of makes me put it back on our travel itinerary in the coming future. The next one is my favorite, and it's probably coming with a little bit of bias because it's from our stable. In 2016, McDonald's embarked on a capacity-based planning work with much success, where we matched demand and delivery through an algorithm which enabled real-time matching of demand of kitchen capacity and therefore creating rapid response from the brand to deliver to the consumer needs. With the emergence of food service solutions like Grab and Deliveroo, we evolved the solution further to collaborate with Grab, who otherwise is also a competitor, to enhance our customer experience. This work that you will see started in the pre-crisis stage, but is a gold standard for what future marketing holds. It helps brands make better decisions faster and enhances the consumer user experience. Let's roll the video, please.
McDonald's has been a pioneer in the food delivery category since the launch of McDelivery in 2005. But with new food delivery players popping up, the competition has been heating up. Consumers in Singapore now have access to even more food options than ever before, with delivery services bringing it to their doorstep in as little as 20 minutes. Rather than letting these competitors eat into its delivery orders, McDonald's recognized the opportunity to partner with one of the aggregators and leverage both their customer base and delivery riders, allowing the fast food chain to not only maintain its market share, but actually drive incremental sales. Using a proprietary award-winning technology, we map the brand's delivery hubs data on search marketing platforms based on high consumer demand and low operational capacity neighborhoods. With a customized script, which optimized ad messaging and landing page, we were able to dynamically drive and capture orders, regardless of McDonald's real-time delivery capacity. When McDelivery could fulfill an order in a reasonable amount of time, we took the orders via McDelivery. When it couldn't, we drove them to GrabFood, ensuring that nobody was left without their favorite McDonald's meal. Through the smart use of media and real-time data signals, we were able to double the awareness of the McDonald's and GrabFood partnership and drive a substantial increase in McDonald's sales, allowing the brand to fulfill orders and reap incremental revenue that would have otherwise gone elsewhere.
We've seen examples across categories, across different phases of the crisis, and each solution was anchored on responding fast, with clear direction, and thereby creating a velocity effect for the brand. And this will be a critical discriminator to define whether, regardless of the environment, whether your recovery is going to be a V-shaped, U-shaped, or an L-shaped. One of the new normals for us in the coming days is how we've all embraced digital commerce. With e-commerce etched in our psyche now, brands need to straddle both offline and online sales and sales and distribution. As I pass the baton on to Jacqui to take us through some insights on winning in this space, let's see some key consumer behavior shifts and expectations on the e-commerce space. Next slide. We have seen significant growth, across a lot of e-commerce ecosystem, which we just saw. One of the big things that are actually happening now is 40% of people have actually said now that they will shop online more frequently, especially coming out of the outbreak. And this number actually hits 50% in China. And more than 51% of all audiences expecting the service delivery to be better, as well as have free service delivery, right? This behavior shift is something that we all have to acknowledge and embrace. Going to the next slide, right? Why do I say so, right? One of the key things that has happened as a function of this is we are waiting in line in store, we are taking temperature checks, we are registering personal details, so on and so forth. And it is akin to consumers logging in on website and registering and browsing. So if you really look at it, These measures that we have put in place in store and physical stores are actually bridging the experience gap that existed between online shopping and offline shopping, and therefore further accelerating people to jump into online shopping. And this potentially will be a big new norm that all of us have to be prepared, not only from a showing up in this environment from a marketing perspective, but also in our supply chain management to say how we are able to cater to offline distribution as well as online distribution. Let's go to the next slide. And I'm, one of the things that we have learned in the 3 stages is in the 4 stages from outbreak to future is consumers have elevated their expectations from brands. Consumers have elevated their own expectations from themselves. Over the last 10 to 15 years, our brands had the benefit of the slipstream of the economy accelerating. And therefore, we had driven our marketing, driven our sales and share of market through tactical activity and promotion and price-driven initiatives. Moving into the next phase, one of the things that we need to do is to actually start catering to the evolved needs of the consumers, and therefore moving from a very mindless way of engaging with consumers to a more mindful way of engaging with the consumers. I will actually hand over to Harry to then pass the baton on to Jacqui.
Thanks, Ranga, for the wonderful insights. So from a mindless experience to a mindful experience, now let's move to what does a mindful omni-channel consumer retail experience looks like. So I'll hand it over to Jacqui to take us through the next session. Jacqui, over to you.
Thank you, Perry, for the introduction. So as Ranga was just sharing earlier about shifting from mindless to mindful, I think this is a great lead-in to the kind of big shifts that we will now see in the retail world. So I'm sure everyone agrees that compared to just a few years ago, how we shop, where we shop, what we buy from, and exactly what we expect from brands have completely changed. And of course, with the impact of COVID-19 on everyone, basically these effects will be compounded. Okay, so but before we actually start the presentation proper, I thought it's important to take a look at the audiences who matter. We call them the prosumers. Prosumers are basically today's leading influencers and market drivers. So they have been the focus of Havas Group's global research and study for more than a decade. And why they're important is not just because they contribute economic value and because of their spending power, but also because prosumers influence the brand choices and the consumption behavior of others. So basically what the prosumers are doing today, mainstream consumers will be likely to do in the next 6 to 18 months from now. So we have shaped our findings of the retail trends based on this global study that was conducted across 37 markets and across 16,000 people. So there are just 3 very key findings that I think are interesting. Move to the next slide. The first being that 77% of retail brands could disappear and basically nobody would care. Okay, so while this is a very startling global statistic, but the reality is that Asia is leading the way in being the harshest when it comes to demanding meaning and relevance from retail brands. Okay, so even in the context of Singapore, for example, you would have noted that multiple retail brands over the last 8 years have basically exited and bowed out of the market, and consumers have just basically moved on in a flash. Okay. And the second finding that we have is that more than 40% of prosumers or consumers are so hooked onto the convenience economy that is provided by online shopping, where all their purchases are proactively marketed to them by leveraging data, that they basically no longer feel the need to go to a physical store anymore. And now with the pandemic upon us, the growth and the stickiness of online shopping will be accelerated even further. So categories that were previously a lot more store-based, for example, makeup or jewelry, or even let's say higher value items like automobiles, for example, they have also pivoted to an e-commerce model during the circuit breaker period. And besides just being sticky, I think what's important is that their audience segments have also expanded significantly. So in the past, you would imagine that the Gen Zs and the millennials, who are the slightly younger audiences, they would be the ones that are hooked onto digital consumption and digital purchase, but that's not true. With this whole COVID-19 upon us, essentially even the Gen X and the baby boomers that were previously a little bit resistant to technology have also jumped onto the bandwagon. And these habits are expected to stay. And the third finding here is really no surprise to many people, is that with all that has happened around us in recent times, basically what we will notice is that there will be an upgrading of consumption mindset while downgrading our consumption desire. So what this really means is that the expectations on quality and value have definitely risen significantly. People want to take care of themselves a lot more, but in return for a much smaller price tag. So if we move on to the next slide, okay, so with such a challenging backdrop, okay, how can retailers continue to thrive if they are still very much rooted in a brick and mortar kind of business and reliant on physical stores? And if they have already just started embarking on a digital presence, how could they up the game further to better integrate the customer experience from online to offline and back to online? So I personally love this quote from Emily Weiss, who is the founder of Glossier, because she summed up, very, very nicely that Amazon solved buying, but it killed shopping in the process. Okay, there's no better way to put this, because in today's world, it's really not just about solving the convenience of transactions and buying itself, but also there is now a huge pressing need to redefine the role of physical stores in the shopper journey. And we have to cleverly leverage the digital as well as the offline experience to build meaningful retail experiences. So very quickly, I would like to zoom in. Could you move to the next slide, please? Okay, so very quickly, I would like to zoom into how the famous 4 Ps of marketing that many of us are very familiar with have now transformed and pivoted to the 4 Cs. Okay, to the next slide, please. Okay, so the 4 Ps in retail marketing that we're very familiar with is product, place, promotion, and price. And these 4 Ps have been there for donkey years, right? But now the pivots that we are seeing and what we need to embrace is what we call the 4 Cs of future retail, which is culture, community, connoisseur, as well as convergence. So without further ado, let me just start with the first C, which is about culture. Okay, so, and this is all about making shopping experiences entertaining, meaningful, and pleasantly surprising for customers. Okay, we know that 74% of customers expect this as a new norm. So this is a new baseline. And instead of just selling them food, for example, they want cooking shows, they want inspirational recipes. So instead of just selling them clothes, they want fashion shows, they want augmented reality, they want social interactions. Right? So I think one of the brands that have done this pretty well is Jewel Changi. Please move to the next slide. Okay, so Jewel Changi is a great example. Okay, they had a month-long Pokemon parade last year with 8 Pikachus. And again, I think that what's important here is the thinking behind it, where they wanted to rally consumers who are into Japanese gaming, into cartoon culture, to combine with the in-store experience at their flagship store, Pokemon Center, with the fun of mobile gaming that is done on the go, as well as event activation, as well as pop-up opportunities. So it's a full 360 experience. So you don't even need to be a real hardcore Pokemon fan to feel that you're drawn into part of the culture. So this has been a very powerful and sticky kind of effect on customers who will just keep coming back again and again. And moving on to another example that's further from home is Kemp. Okay, so Kemp is a kids retailer in America. So in particular, their New York City outlet is really amazing, right? So it's an experiential base camp that's built for families and kids, which will have new themes that keep changing every 8 to 12 weeks. So kids are basically encouraged to be very tactile, to touch things, run around, while also engaging in arts and craft workshop. They're also encouraged to hold mini concerts and performances all within the store. And they also built like a Momofuku milk bar that serves coffee, crack pie, and ice cream. So all the toys, the quirky books, the candies, the knickknacks that Kemp is actually trying to sell to customers, they are all peripheral and ambient, if you will, and somehow just a very natural part of the space that they interact with so that kids can discover them as part of the adventure. So what this means, even for smaller retailers, is that there is a huge potential and possibility of adding relevant dimensions to layer the consumer experience and making it a lot richer. So in this instance, it's food crossed with play, or art crossed with play, or even music crossed with live performances. Okay, and the next C that we wanted to talk about is communities. As you can see, 76% say that they would love to see their favorite retail brands be a lot more locally grounded and to take an interest in various communities. And by this, we are not taking the high ground by just saying that it's all about giving back or just purely CSR. I mean, that's not the only focus. That's one of the focus, but it's not the only focus. But also about contributing actively and meaningfully to specific communities within your market. So one excellent example here is Lululemon Singapore. It's great in terms of the value that they provided to their specific community. In this instance, it's the local health and fitness community in Singapore. So Lululemon only has very few physical retail outlets in Singapore, but their efforts in social media allows them to become larger than life. Okay, so with the help of what we call virtual personal trainers and health coaches, they basically own the different territories like rest and relax, high intensity training, eating right and good dietary habits, self-care, and they even infiltrate your own personal calendar at high frequency and stickiness by offering a whole month full of programs that you can basically sign up for. So the power of live streaming and live interactions basically allowed the brand to live up to its DNA within very reasonable marketing budgets. Another example that is a very familiar household name will be Poheng Jewelry. I'm sure many of you know the brand, of course. And when they launched a limited edition Mickey Mouse collaboration, the series of jewelry, they found the ultimate Mickey Mouse fan in Singapore who had the craziest collection of Mickey Mouse items ever to launch their Mickey Goes Gold campaign. So viewers were invited to join him. It's a him, by the way. Okay, so the viewers were invited to join him and a host for a virtual birthday party, which was live streamed on Facebook. So basically all the Mickey Mouse limited edition jewelry pieces, we had 9 of them that were all hidden in different parts of his room. And as the live stream program was going on, as the virtual party was going on, people could just guess where and spot the jewelry and stand to win them. And throughout the entire experience, which lasted about probably an hour, they interjected it with a lot of live questions and trivia about Mickey Mouse so that they could keep the interactions and the engagement very, very strong, as well as promote high engagement, preference, and finally purchase. And the next seed I want to speak about is connoisseurship. So, connoisseurs basically, these are the people who are supposed to represent your brand, and they are supposed to be the experts in your products or experts in your field. Sad to say, 92% of people have said that they do not trust in-store salespeople. They find them very unknowledgeable about their products, and sometimes they can be even overly pushy. So if salespeople who are representing your brand cannot offer more in-depth knowledge and advice than what customers can already find easily by themselves online, then there's very little motivation for them to even head to your physical store or even interact with any humans that's representing your brand. So I think to this, we wanted to showcase a couple of examples, I think 3 examples. The first being Fair Price. It's a brand that I believe is extremely close to our hearts during Circuit Breaker. Fair Price felt that it was important to profile the people behind the business. So this example is about profiling. These people have honed their skills, their know-how over the years. They are very relentless and passionate about what they do. So reinforcing their expertise and their unstoppable commitment to serve the community, come what may, have definitely increased engagement on social, as well as built greater trust with customers. So this is an example about showcasing the strong, good, long-standing, knowledgeable talent that's in your pool. The second example is about LVMH Group. So this isn't exactly about LVMH and luxury per se, but this example focuses a lot on proactive and I would say innovative recruitment strategies to build their next wave of brand connoisseurs for their brand. So they partner with 50 partner schools and universities in Europe, and even in Singapore, there is an existing collaboration between LVMH and SMU, where they would sift out, train, and recruit these luxury passion seekers who are then trained via masterclasses on various facets of luxury craftsmanship and retail. And this training also includes soft skills such as conversation and empathy, which is much needed when you are fronting the next wave of salespeople or sales representatives who will be interacting with your customers. So being innovative in your recruitment approach to build your team of brand connoisseurs is definitely not something that is accessible only to the large brands. The third example, which is my personal favorite, of course, is an independent jewelry brand that is based in New York. Okay, they basically understand the consumer insight that buying jewelry online and on social media can be challenging sometimes, because the customer cannot imagine how it mixes and matches with different outfits. So even just looking at photographs and images from the e-commerce listing, you will not be able to tell the item to scale, and you can't really assess whether it's indeed something suitable. So what Monica Risch-Kozan did very, very well was to digitize the experience seamlessly by introducing personal stylists and a concierge service. So interested customers can arrange one-to-one video calls with their stylists for a very curated and personal experience. So basically the curation of items are done not just based on customers' request of what they want and the occasion that they're shopping for, but they also use data based on this customer's ID in terms of the browsing habits on their website. So they curate a very special and personalized shopping experience that makes the customer feel special and pampered. And of course, this also gives them the opportunity to cross-sell and to upsell meaningfully by first building a genuine relationship with the customer. And of course, these purchases can be made online with money-back guarantee, which minimizes the whole risk, and we call it the inertia or the obstacle to purchase. The final C that I wanted to focus on today is about convergence. So just like markets, advanced markets like China, I think Singapore has also stepped up significantly in our O2O capabilities, making the virtual and the physical lives quite indistinguishable. So customers don't really have to choose between either, because they have both, right? The best of both worlds, and they're all very well fused together. I would like to focus on just two brands that have come out tops in the Forrester's 2019 Retail Omnichannel Assessment that was done in Singapore. And the two top brands that came up that I wanted to focus on would be Uniqlo and Decathlon. So Uniqlo specifically has a strong history of omni-channel capabilities. They were among the first brands to offer in-store touchscreens so that shoppers can share their outfits on social media. And now once you sign up on your Uniqlo mobile app, shoppers can view all their purchase history. They can look for personalized suggestions for matching products. They can confirm the availability of these items, whether online or they can pick it up easily from a brick and mortar store. And I think globally, the whole mantra and DNA is always about innovation. So they're even thinking of installing vending machines with, premium t-shirts and jackets that's available at multiple touch points. So whether it's on the web or on the mobile app or in real life or in malls or in flight terminals in the future, Uniqlo's omni-channel approach leverages the power of data to have one customer view and to seamlessly connect the physical to the digital experience. And the last example I wanted to share will be on Decathlon. So it's a French sports retailer, and they have equipped their physical stores with what we call an automated inventory management tool, like an RFID tag. So they also have installed dedicated service counter to deliver very efficient in-store pickups post-purchase. And of course, I think what's interesting is that cross-store inventory checks is easily done through online inventory management tools. But I think also giving the customers the opportunity and the choice to self-checkout in aisle. So while they're in aisle shopping, they could self-checkout at the kiosks. They have made the experience as contactless as possible, while also offering multiple payment options through mobile. And they've essentially eliminated all the long queues that is, synonymous with typical physical retail stores. So I hope the examples that we have shared earlier have inspired some, can move to the next slide, please. I hope the examples that I've shared earlier have inspired some new possibilities in how the 4 Cs can be leveraged to drive success in retail in the new world and to build more meaningful retail experiences. I think one of the most important points is that regardless of whether your business is starting small or have scaled to a mid or a larger size, I think a lot of the learnings from these examples can be adapted to your unique business needs. And we'll be happy to share a copy of the Retail Prosumer report with you to get the creative juices flowing. Okay, so I'll pass back to Perry now to do a summary.
Thank you very much, Jacqui. So as you saw, we started this journey from mindless to mindful and now to meaningful customer experiences. So I hope you found all the insights here useful. So what we will do now is, if you go to the next slide, Jade, we will do a small, let's address the questions. I was about to jump to the survey, very eager to know what you think about this, but let's do the questions. We are running out of time, but there's one question that has been repeated by quite a few, so I think it's important that we answer that, which is about B2B, that the examples are B2C-ish, but what about B2B companies? Do they stand to gain from the similar insights that both you, Jacqui, you and Ranga have shared? So I'll hand it over to either of you to answer that question. Jacqui, do you want to go first?
Okay, sure. Yeah, okay. I think what I shared earlier was about how the 4 Ps have pivoted to 4 Cs, right? So I would say that the learnings or the principles can still apply, but I think the relative weights or the importance of the 4 Cs would differ. So in B2B, I think a lot of the customers would really expect a strong expertise. So I think the C that talks about connoisseur, about being an expert, as well as community, building a strong vertical community that is interested in the similar space, okay, will be the more important ones compared to, just purely convergence or looking at culture, for example. So yeah, I think it applies, but in different relativity.
Ranga, would you want to chime in?
One of the things that I mentioned about is, in the past, people used to attend seminars and webinars more to network than to gain knowledge. One of the key pivots again from this situation is, given that we have been pushed into such an ambiguous environment, to take from Jacqui's point, expertise becomes very meaningful. But there are expertise in 2 areas, 2 buckets broadly. Professional progress. So how can I do better for my organization? And personal progress. What can I do better myself to grow? So a lot of B2B organizations, when they are getting themselves in front of consumers, their audiences, they're having to customize their engagement based on professional progress and personal progress. And when they're able to nuance this, they're able to have better engagement. With the blessing also comes a problem. There's abundance of webinar. How do I choose what's relevant for me, right? And that is where creating the personal progress angle and therefore driving a professional progress kind of gives a good balance for people to engage with you. I think one of the questions that was also nuanced was, how do we monetize this, right? I think the idea is, how do you create value? If you're able to anchor the question well, and if that value is created in terms of creating clarity and helping people get their head around how to navigate the situation, I think the monetization will follow. So that's broadly what my belief is.
Great, thank you, Ranga. So that's all the time we had for the questions, but please do reach out to us on social media using the hashtag for the event. We will be monitoring this hashtag for some time, and we'd love to engage with you in a conversation. And many of you have asked whether they can get access to some of the reports that we talked about. Yes, you can. The slide is coming up with a link after this survey. We will give you access to some wonderful resources on consumer behavior during COVID and what brands are doing. So just hang in there. We are 2 slides away from that. But before that, let's do some work. Let's get some interaction going. We have a quick poll for you. Please tell us, did this webinar expose the key insights necessary for your brand to navigate the new business environment? Please let us know whether you agree with this or not. Choose any of the options. We'll give you a few seconds, and then we'll take you to the link. Okay, we'll take a couple of more seconds. All right, so thank you very much. Thanks for the participation. Looks like 15% of you strongly agree and 68% agree with you. Thank you very much for this. And And now, as promised, let me just share 3 more things with you. Next, please. Our next set of webinars, this was a 3rd webinar of Executive Insights, and we complete one triad of webinar, which was more focused on brands and consumer behavior. We are moving to the next phase, which is social media. So the next series of 3 Executive Insights webinars will be on social media. The first one will be on storytelling, second will be on social media trends, and then the last one on social media would be about parents, youth, and millennials. In the first one, Nusir, who's from NAS Daily, will join us. So, that will be a great surprise. So please book your calendars for 11th of June. And now, if you move to the next slide, we're happy to share the links with you. These are 2 excellent resources to understand what's happening around us in these times, where the first resource is actually done by an individual in OMG, Ranga, correct? And he is crowdsourcing links and case studies which are relevant to the current times. Would you want to talk more about what people can expect on the link?
Yeah, CN, who works for PhD, is a young bloke just out of university working with us. And he's done this amazing initiative where he's put together a Google Doc cloud space where anybody who's creating a point of view on how marketers are responding to COVID is being curated. So it is not specific to one organization. It is across sectors. The creative agencies who put their content there, strategy agencies, brand agencies, research agencies, and a lot of information is out there, especially for mid to long tail brands, clients who have a need to tap into the resources. This is a great a place to get to. And globally, this work has been recognized. And there is a podcast as well in this link. I would highly encourage you guys to look at it.
Thank you, Ranga. That's wonderful indeed. And the next link is of the Havas Prosumer report that Jacqui referenced in her presentation. So Jacqui, thank you very much for sharing this with us.
Most welcome. I think we have quite a number of series of prosumer reports over the years. So this one that we have shared today is on retail, but there will be more coming up in 2020 as well. And of course, if anyone is interested to understand a bit more about prosumer, please reach out. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we'll leave you with one final video, which shows that no matter how heavy and how high the adversity is, human will always triumphs. This is the new Nike promo, which uses the metaphor.
Down 5-1.
We've all been underestimated and counted out. In those moments, we felt like it was over.
It's not looking good for Rafa.
But it's when we're given no chance
What could Osaka be thinking right now?
that we somehow found that last bit of strength to keep fighting. And then we did what no one thought we could. Not even ourselves. We came back from the impossible. From being broken. We found a way when it seemed hopeless. We came back when we should have been long forgotten. And we did it time and time again. Right now, we're fighting for something much bigger than a win or championship. But if we learn anything from sports, it's that no matter how far down we may be, we are never too far down to come back.
You're never too far down to come back. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you all on 11th June at the next Executive Insights by Mediacorp. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.